Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Voices of Western. This is the Humans of Western podcast. Tonight, I'm excited to be introducing another alumni, Tim Lade, and bring him to one of our alumni guest episodes. Tim graduated with a degree in film studies from Western in 2006. And during his time as a student, he was super involved in residence life, helping with residence council, being a residence advisor, and a soph, which later enabled him to be able to find a role and career in those areas. He also pursued a degree in Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership at Royal Roads University and graduated with that degree in 2014, and basically has been on the move since he graduated, moving from one residence to the other, from one side of Canada to the other, and experiencing a lot of different locations and what it means to work in different universities. Now I'm going to pass it on to Tim to give a brief introduction about himself and maybe add the points that I missed in introducing him.
Hello, thank you, my friend. I am really excited to be here with you this evening. It has been, I think we've been working on this for over a year now, so it's exciting to finally be meeting you virtually and recording this episode. You do speak the truth. I graduated from Western with a B.A. Honours in film studies and sort of an unofficial minor in history and MIT. And I was a residence advisor in Saugeen, Maitland Hall, and I was also a soph for a year. My soph name was Strongbad at the time. And I was also really involved with Western Foot Patrol and Residence Council and the Western Undergraduate Film Society. And so I spent a lot of time on campus. And I did graduate from Royal Roads University with a Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, where my research area was around enhancing student leadership in residence specifically. And for the last 15 years, I have worked in student housing at 6 different institutions in 6 different parts of the country. I spent the biggest chunk of time at MacEwan University in Edmonton, Alberta, 9.5 years there, and helped relaunch their residence life program. And I've been moving around since then. I was at Sheridan College in Ontario and St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia and the University of King's College, also in Nova Scotia. And now I'm at Lakehead University in Orillia at their satellite campus. And I've been here for about 6 months now. But all totaled, it's about 15 years of working in student housing professionally and living on campus for almost 21 years now. And so I am what I would call a student housing nerd, and also just a nerd in general, because I enjoy science fiction. I enjoy watching Gordon Ramsay yell at people. And I also enjoy, taking part in the campus community as often as possible.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. And I guess it's fair to say that you never really left university. You have been involved.
No, I tell
so
people
long?
all the time when they ask me, why do you still live on campus? And I say, because I never want to graduate. And I like living on campus and being part of the community.
And how did you get started with all of these? Was like becoming a residence advisor the very first step towards pursuing a career in student life?
Yeah, I was a residence advisor on the 2004-2005 Saugeen Maitland Hall Residence Life staff team. And I was a residence advisor on 3 Lower. That was my community. And I fell in love with the job. And I realized that I would rather do RA things than go to class. And so in retrospect, if I could go back in time and do it all over again, I think I would do a degree in human resources, because I spend a lot of my time on performance management now, RA hiring, training, coaching and leadership development, as well as supporting our residence council here at Lakehead and our 6 house presidents. So it did all start with being an RA. And I think Western housing really shaped for me the concept of relationship building, and that it isn't just about a head and a bed, right? It's certainly a service that residence provides, but it's more than that. It's about helping people figure out who they are and helping them fulfill their potential and meet the goals that they've set for themselves. And that relationship building piece is something I learned as an RA and as a soph and as a an operations manager at Foot Patrol. And those pieces were the formative things that helped figure out my first professional steps as a residence life professional.
So you mentioned you lived in Saugeen as a residence advisor. I know when I was a Don, well, now the concept has changed from like RAs to Dons. I always wanted to stay away from Saugeen just because of the negative, connotation that comes with it. Was it the same back then too? I mean, I don't want to say it, but some people have referred to Saugeen as a zoo.
Yeah.
That has changed recently, but I'm curious to see if that was the case back then as well.
So I actually lived in Saugeen for 3 years. I did my first year there in 2000 and 2001. So 22 years ago, I moved into residence for the first time. And I loved it. I was really nervous to begin with. I'd never shared a room with anyone. I'd never eaten in a dining hall other than at summer camp. And I was very nervous about that. And I fell in love with it, right? I fell in love with the campus life. I fell in love with that building because it's so busy and it is so filled with so many personalities that you're never bored. There's never a time where you think, oh, there's nothing to do here. And I actually took a year off in between my first and my second year just to work and make some money. And I came back as a soph, and I was in Saugeen again and loved it. Again, loved being part of Residence Council. I was one of the first internet commissioners for Residence Council that year. And then I stepped into an RA role the following year. So 3 years I was in Saugeen. And my last year, I just focused on school and grades for grad school. So I lived in Essex, and that was a completely different experience. It was much quieter, and it was much more focused on academics that year. But I wouldn't trade my 3 years in Saugeen for anything. It is a lively place, and that's the way I like it, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it has changed. Like I've had friends who lived in Saugeen in their first year and always talked positively about it. There might be the cases of a person here and there who did not enjoy their time there. But I think what Western housing has been focusing on is working, kind of creating that opportunity for students to make those connections, have fun, and connect with others.
Well, I know the director, Chris. I've known him for a long time now, probably the whole length of my career. And one of the things I know that's really important to Chris is creating a residence culture where you respect yourself, you respect your fellow residents, and you take care of the place that you live in. And so that's really a value that I have tried to carry over to the different systems I've worked in as well. And that value of character and respect is so important to the students we work with.
Exactly. So how did you, let's fast forward to graduation, then you lived in Saugeen and Essex all. How did you end up pursuing a residence life coordinator? I know there are different titles for this role, but how did you end up pursuing this role?
So I started applying for jobs. I'd gone to a few conferences, housing conferences when I was a student, and both the Ontario Association of College and University Housing Officials and Caucus, which is the Canadian Association of University and College Student Services. They both have job boards on their websites. So I started applying and looking for different opportunities. I have never felt the need to stay in one place though. And so right from the get-go, I was looking at opportunities in all different provinces and in the US and in the United Kingdom. I have a British visa. So I was actually just recently in the last year or so looking at job opportunities over there as well. So I think that really opened up a lot of doors to me because I was willing to go wherever. I didn't feel the need to stay local. As I've gotten older, I'm certainly feeling the call of being closer to home. My parents are both older now, and so it's nicer. It's nice to be back in Ontario and only a couple hours away as opposed to a 5-hour flight.
Right. And so kind of like following up on the question about the British visa, would you say that the residence life back there is kind of somewhat similar to the one we have in Canada? Is it better? Is it worse? Like how do they compare?
So it is like we were maybe 20 years ago. They're just starting
wow.
student housing. Like they've had student housing operations for hundreds and thousands of years in England. The ancient universities like Trinity College in Dublin has had student housing for as long as that university has existed. But the residence life program and the idea of student staff and programming and relationship building, that is just starting out, and it's only a few years old. So it's a prime opportunity for those that are thinking of traveling internationally to work in student affairs, because it's just growing, which is a really exciting opportunity to help formulate a program for the first time.
That's fair. I don't know. I guess some people could see it as a step back if you are, moving from a place where it has like developed all of these processes in place and has everything kind of figured out, and then like going to another place where this is still like just starting out. But I do see the value that you could be the pioneer in terms of creating something sustainable and long term.
Yeah. I like a good challenge. I've started a residence life program from scratch, and sort of re-nurtured one other, and that's an inspiring thing to be able to build something from the very get-go. But I completely agree with what you're saying, that it might feel like a step back in the right context. But as I said, I haven't met a challenge I don't like. So
yeah, I mean, residence life, do you get to deal with people most of the time, or because you talked about organizational management, so I'm curious to see what kind of challenges you work on mostly.
So the biggest trend that has only gotten larger as the years have gone by now, the biggest trend is student mental health. And I would say second to that would be sexual violence and responding and preventing that in a really intentional way. But every year, student mental health gets a little bit busier with students who need additional supports and come with complex histories. I mean, every student is different. So I work on the ground level with students directly. I supervise at Lakehead 6 RAs and 6 house presidents. And our RAs are sort of focused on the relationship building side of things and supporting students who are in need, making sure that they're getting referred in a way that is supportive and that they're connected to resources. And then our house presidents focus on the educational sort of social side of things. And so every year I feel like it gets a little bit busier, but the benefit of that is that it's really built a strong capacity in me to recognize the value of training our residence assistants and our frontline staff, our dining hall staff, our housekeeping staff, to notice when a student they interact with regularly is not doing well, and to make sure that that's getting reported and referred up so that we can support that student. So it takes a village, and it gets a little bit busier every year. But I think it makes us better as professionals constantly being open to being teachable about those skills and that process that allows us to support students.
100%. Yeah. Like, even if things were effective, years ago or 2 decades ago, it
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be working today. So
yeah,
staying flexible with those policies and how you respond to situations can definitely
yeah.
be, significant here.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that, Western was really foundational to me and into how to do things as a residence advisor and a new residence life professional. And I always think back whenever I'm looking at a decision, I think back to my experience as an RA and say, well, how did they do it then? And that I think is really good foundational information. But you're right that student trends change and people change and culture changes. And, we have more international students. We have students who identify as all sorts of different identities. And so our processes need to change to meet that new student that is coming and staying with us.
when you said people change, I like randomly thought about the change that was introduced by TikTok, how like in 2, 3 years ago, dancing to a song was not
Yeah.
necessarily something significant, but nowadays it's
Yeah.
just like the norm, like you got to
Yeah.
just join the dance.
I'm a big Instagram nerd and I do have TikTok, but I am not a TikTok dancer. So you will not see that ever on my TikTok or my Instagram account.
Yeah, well, we'll see. This recording will
Times
timestamp
change,
it.
times change. So we'll
Times
see.
change, exactly.
Yeah.
And as you were like busy kind of working in these areas for so long, moving places, one place to the other, when did you find the time to pursue a master's and what was the inspiration behind that?
Um, it actually came back funnily enough. It came back to one of my colleagues at Western who had pursued the same degree program, and so that was the inspiration. I knew that I wanted to move up in higher education, and post grad or post undergrad degrees are essential. I think you can't do well or move up in higher education without having completed those credentials. I mean, that's what attending post secondary is about, is higher level credentials. So I knew that I needed that. My one of my career aspirations or goals is to be a dean of students one day, and that means having a doctorate at one point. So it was a colleague at Western who inspired me, and I put it off for several years just because my workload was crazy. And then on a whim, I applied to Royal Roads, and I got in. I ended up deferring it for a year just because work was crazy busy. And then I just decided that summer, the summer of 2012, that was the time to get the ball rolling. I attended a conference at the University of Georgia, and I was the only one there without their masters, and so that
Oh,
really
wow.
prompted me to start that process. So started in 2012, and it was challenging to do that and full-time work at the same time. And so it was not an easy task, but it taught me a lot about resilience and academic rigor and ensuring that you take the time to complete something that matters in the best way possible. So academic rigor is challenging, but it's something that taught me a lot about capacity building.
And it looks like you enjoyed your experience too, because you've been able to continue in that career area for like so many years after that too. I
Yeah.
guess one of the problems I have with like pursuing a higher degree is that many people do it without having the end goal in mind. That's usually the next step when a recently graduate wants to take. They would
Mhm.
say, okay, I just graduated with this undergrad degree. Now what
Mhm.
do? I can't find a job. Let me go pursue 2 years of master's degree in
Hmm.
whatever
Hmm.
just to have a master's degree. I'm like
Yeah.
very against this idea personally, just because um if you pursue something that isn't gonna get you closer to where you want to go, or you have no idea where you want to go, it could end up being a waste of time, right? But in your case, you kind of left it off for a few years, kind of got visibility on why it's helpful. And
Yeah.
again, the important point of like you were in a conference where almost everyone had a master's degree
Yeah.
except you. So that was like the big sign of, okay, I got to get this master's degree if I want to be
Yeah.
part of this room
Yeah.
later on.
I think you're right. I think that it's one thing to do post undergrad work just for the sake of it, just to think, well, I have nothing else better to do. But I was really intentional about it. I took the time because I wanted to make sure that I was spending my money and I was investing my time in a way that was going to help my career. Um, and so, I mean, should I have waited 6 years? Probably not. Because even now, I'm 42 and I'm just starting to think about a doctorate. So that could have been done a little sooner, I think. But having said that, things happen when they're intended to happen. So I don't regret that at all.
And I've always been curious about a doctorate in leadership. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Any
It's the
ideas on what that is? Like, do you get to write a thesis? Do you get to
Yeah.
research? Like, how does that even work?
So the doctorate I'm looking at actually is at Western. It's the educational doctorate, the 3-year online program, and so it is obviously more focused on education, and higher administration or higher education administration. So that's sort of the vein I'm hoping to tap into in the next year or so.
Yeah, this kind of gave me an idea as well for our next episodes to bring someone with a doctorate degree and figure out, what goes on behind a PhD because you got to be a special type of person to pursue it.
Yeah,
I know I could
that
never.
that's rigor. That's academic rigor for you to be able to birth a dissertation. So we'll see. We'll see where the wind takes me, I guess.
Absolutely. I guess it's positive. It would be great to bring you back to Western
Yeah, that
very
my
soon.
parents are in London now, so that would be delightful to be back on campus. Obviously, it's an online program, but to be able to be in that space again would be really special.
And I thought I was super great in adaptation and changing locations until I saw your LinkedIn profile, which was like,
Yeah,
moving all over the place here and there every
yeah.
few years. Tell me about adaptability. How do you adapt?
Um, I I have always flown by the seat of my pants. I don't know what it is or what my parents did to build that skill set in me, but I think it's probably because we moved around a lot when I was a kid. I was born in Hamilton, but we moved very quickly after that to Kitchener, and then after that my dad got transferred with he worked for Environment Canada and he was transferred out to Newfoundland. And so we lived in St. John's for a year, and my sister was born then, and then went back to Ontario for another year. And then we moved to the house my dad grew up in. And that all happened before I turned 5. So we moved around a lot. And then my parents stayed there for 35 years. But um, I've just always had that travel bug in me. And I've always wanted to explore new opportunities and new skills. And I think that, I've lived in Nova Scotia, I've lived in Quebec, I've lived in Manitoba and Alberta. Um, and I wanted to really see the student experience across the board because every part of Canada is a little bit different and students are different depending on where you are. Um, and I really think that if you're going to try and support someone, you have to understand what their experience is like. And I know for our international students, they're coming from a completely different part of the world where maybe there's a different language, different culture, different experience, different way of doing things.
Different weather.
And that can be
Weather is a big one.
challenging. That can be one of the hardest things anyone ever does. And so I wanted to experience, I mean, I've not worked internationally yet, but I wanted to know what it felt like to move to a completely different place you had never been before and figure it out. So I do have I have had a bit of a travel bug in me, but as I've gotten older, I think that's waned a little bit. I like being closer to home now.
That's good. It's good. Yeah, traveling is positive, and it kind of brings you the new perspective of just interacting with different people and different cultures. To me, it's been eye-opening because you notice how the problems that I'm dealing with is not as significant as I thought, because I am able to witness how people are dealing with much more significant challenges. And that's not to dismiss my own challenges, but to just put in things into perspective and help me get back on track to attempt solving those and seeing that, it's not the worst case thing. It's not the worst thing that could happen to a person.
I completely agree with you. And, one example that I think has been helpful to help illustrate was when I moved to Alberta, I had not worked with Indigenous students before, coming from Northern Canada. And MacEwan pulls a lot of students from the territories. And that was a huge learning piece to me about how we support our Indigenous students, how we work towards truth and reconciliation, how we hold space for them, was a really eye-opening experience. And that capacity, I don't think I would have built as quickly as I did had I stayed in Ontario. And when I moved to Sheridan College, I had the opportunity to work with a large trans population of students, and that was my first experience with that. And that helped shape for me how to approach that group of students and how to make sure that they have the supports in place for them to fulfill their potential. And so moving around a lot has helped me build those different capacities that I think would have taken a little bit more time had I not lived with those groups of students.
Okay, let's go to one of our newly introduced features, which is the hot take section. And that is a feature where we ask our guests what their hot take is on a special topic. And tonight's topic is, do pineapples belong on a pizza and why? Tim, you want to take that?
Yes, I'm happy to share my passionate feelings about pineapple on pizza. And I personally like it. I like sweet and savory at the same time. So same concept as French fries and ice cream. If you have not tried French fries and ice cream, you are missing out. So it's the sweet and savory sort of thing at the same time. And the Hawaiian pizza was actually invented in Ontario, in Chatham, Ontario. So as a proud Canadian, I live proudly for my Hawaiian pizza when the dining hall offers it to me.
This might be the very first time where we have two distinct, quite different opinions on this topic. Because I'm super not for a pineapple on a pizza. I tried it once before. I think it was twice actually when my friend recommended. I didn't like it. I didn't see the point in it. But I do always respect the people who kind of prefer having a pineapple on a pizza. I just don't see it fitting with the theme of pizza and cheese and all the tomato sauce.
My friend, it's your journey. So no judgment. You eat pizza the way that works best for you. I don't judge. I respect your choice. As I said, it is your journey.
But you know what? I did try the French fries with ice cream. It was once from Costco where they were kind of like closing and wanted to try both of them, the ice cream and French fries. So it was a interesting combination to try. I'm not sure. Why do you like that? Why do you like the
I
ice
don't
cream
know.
and
It's just a
fries?
flavor profile I'm into. I don't know. Sweet and savory at the same time. And I am very lucky that Lakehead Aurelia is a 7-minute walk from the Aurelia Costco. So it's directly across the road from us. And so it keeps me in supply of French fries and ice cream and $1.25 hot dogs. That got me through the summer when the dining hall was closed.
Oh yeah, that hurts when like it's the summertime and dining hall is
Yeah,
closed, no restaurants nearby. Yeah, I've
yeah,
experienced that
yeah.
way too many times. And since we are speaking about the topic of hobbies, I noticed that Gordon Ramsay is also one of the shared interests that we both have.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
would Gordon Ramsay say about a pineapple on a pizza?
Oh, there's video. You can look it up on YouTube, where he is asked that question. He would not think that that's appropriate. I don't think. But one of the things I like about Gordon Ramsay is that his passion for his craft is unmatched, right? You can see how much he cares, how much he wants to see the people he works with be successful. His tone and the time and place and manner in which he vocalizes his displeasure is probably questionable. But I do appreciate the passion and the desire to see people succeed. I get no more. There's no greater joy in my life than seeing an RA or a volunteer or even just a student who was struggling at first. To see them to find success is really that's what gets me excited. So I think that's where I love a good episode of Hell's Kitchen, because at the end of the day he wants them to be successful and as I've said, fulfill their potential. So he probably could do it in a different way, though. Probably not the
Yeah,
best coach.
but then he wouldn't be Gordon Ramsay, right? I guess one of the
Yeah,
features that
that's
made him
true. He
famous.
wouldn't be who he is, and so there is value in being your authentic self. I really believe in that.
Exactly. I think he is like a person or a leader who can motivate you in the right
Mhm.
way. Yeah, kind of like disagree with the wording and phrasing
Yeah,
and how he uses to convey meanings.
yeah,
But I think he conveys emotions really well. Like I could get the message and I know that he wants me to succeed. So I definitely
yeah.
agree with that part.
I think it's also, you know, he has found success in the United States. You leaning into that vibe of being the angry chef.
Yeah.
And if you've watched any of his British shows that are made exclusively in England, he's a very different person. And especially when his kids are involved, he's much softer. And so it is a bit of an act or routine that is being created for television. But his passion is consistent across the board. So I as a coach, like as I coach students myself, I want to bring the best out for them, and so really it's you can't train for passion or for a positive attitude. That's something that comes a little naturally, I think.
Yeah, what's your take on positive attitude or positive mentality?
I try and approach all of my work, and there are challenging days. There are days, where a student reports an incident of sexual violence, or there's a student who is struggling with their mental health, and they may have made an attempt on their life, and that can get heavy to carry around with you. And I'm sure you've heard of empathy burnout, where someone who's in a caregiving position is just they're carrying too much of it home, and it has taken me a long time to really build up the boundaries, to keep those two pieces separate. And that's been a lot of work with my support network. That's been work with through professional counselors that have helped me build that toolbox. Because it's very easy to carry that piece home and to let it rest with you. And I think longevity in this field has come from developing that, that ability to recognize that students are going to be in crisis. That's never going to change. But how we show up, that attitude we show up with is significant. And so I try and go into every single day with positive regard for the day and for the people I work with. And, universities are political beasts. That's also never going to change. And so having that resilience and that patience to work through an issue with a student without taking on that emotional baggage is an essential skill. I think it took me a long time. I would say that this year, after working in housing for 15 years, this is probably the first year where I felt the most confident about those boundaries and ensuring that I show up in a way that helps students and I deal with my own stuff in a way that makes sure I'm not taking that to work. Because I can't help others if I'm not, firing on all cylinders.
Right. That's a good point as well. And one of my favorite phrases is something along the lines of, you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's important to refill your own cup as well.
Yeah, 100%. I take every minute of vacation that I have with my, with my position. So it's really important to take that time away and to really be away and to be focused on yourself. And it's not selfish. It's finding harmony between your obligations. And I think people, say, oh, you need to just find some balance. That's not true, because your family or your loved ones, that's never going to be of equal importance to, ensuring that one of your job tasks was complete. They're not equal. So you can't find balance between those things, but you can find harmony. When one comes in, one may fade out for a little bit, and then, that fades out and something else comes in. So I really like to think of it as an orchestra, and, each section plays at a different time, sometimes all together, and sometimes, in separate sections. So I really try and find harmony between things versus balance, which I'm not sure is tenable for someone who wants to, have longevity in a career as busy as student affairs is.
And as we're approaching kind of, the end of the podcast today, what kind of advice would you like to give our listeners and kind of like a key take-home message for them?
Yeah, I will give some advice that was given to me many, many years ago. And it has resonated with me, and I pass this on to the students I work with. But you have to own your own 2 feet of space in this world without apology. And that means taking care of yourself. That means doing the things that you love. That means investing in yourself in a way that gives you meaning and mattering. And you can't just be in service of your career. And careers are important. A paycheck is important. But at the end of the day, your family and your loved ones and the people that matter the most to you are the ones that will be there for you when the going gets rough. So own your own 2 feet of space in this world without apology. And for me, that means being a big nerd. I love my Star Trek. I love my Battlestar Galactica. I love my food shows. And I always make time for that because that's what fills my cup at the end of the day.
Exactly. I mean, you got to make time for all of those interests. I know I have been in the situation where unfortunately I had to give up on those things that fill my cup just because it gets super busy and you have to get some things done. But over time, as I have reflected on the experiences, I realized that maybe I'm just like overstretching myself, or, you got to make time for those things. Otherwise, life loses its value, loses the kind of things that you enjoy going through and look forward to if you don't make the time for them.
Well, it's like I said at the start. Yes, residence is about heads in beds. That's important. That's the product that we're selling, but we're also selling about a fulsome, robust experience. And so that's the thing that matters at the end of the day is having a fulsome life.
100%. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tim, for all of these, amazing points of wisdom that you shared with us tonight. And thank you so much for everyone for tuning in to another episode of Humans of Western. You can follow us on all of the social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you want. We are there. And have a good rest of your day. Take care.